Namaskar, good evening. A new day, a new evening, and a new moment in our life. And every moment which we lived, which we enjoyed, we should be grateful to God and everyone who was a part of these moments because we enjoyed all our past moments and definitely the moment we are living and the future moments also we will enjoy. I welcome you all in Leaders Avenue talk show. And today is Tuesday. And Tuesday we have book reviews, books. If I talk about myself, since last 10, 11 years, books have been an integral part of my life. And seriously, they have transformed me. What I was 10 or 15 years ago and what I'm today. Books have contributed heavily. And seriously, it was a positive change. And I know my audience who are watching us, definitely they also would vouch my thought. And I like to quote Haruki Murakami when she wrote in her book Norwegian Wood. If you only read the books that everyone else is reading, you can only think what everyone else is thinking. So it depends a lot what genre of books we are reading, which category of books are giving an input to our brain, because what goes inside comes outside. So this is the input and output ratio. I'll again quote Haruki Murakami. If you only read the books that everyone else is reading, you can only think what everyone else is thinking. We need to think from a different perspective. Today, the book I'm going to share with you all, I got the opportunity to read this book around 3 or 4 years ago, and credit goes to one of my students. So there's a CA Janesh. He referred me. He told, "Sir, have you read Arthashastra, Kautilya's?" Before that, I heard about this book, but I was not aware. And he told me, "Sir, do read the translation of R Shamasastry." So I was about to buy, but I didn't get it. But fortunately, I got a PDF of it. And that book has approximately more than 600 pages, and knowledge is immense. Kautilya's Arthashastra. It is an epic book which was originally written by Kautilya, or as we all know, Acharya Chanakya, a philosopher and a guru who was one of the strongest pillars of Maurya Empire. Arthashastra was originally written in, I believe, Sanskrit or the earlier languages. The text was somehow lost at the end of the Gupta regime, but thankfully it was rediscovered, and credit goes to R Shamasastry, who translated it in English. Take time and do search about Dr. R Shamasastry. He was a librarian in Madras Library, and later on he gained the insight of the Indian scriptures, and he started translating lot many scriptures. And because of him, I got the opportunity to read this book. On the screen, you could see Dr. R Shamasastry and his epic book, Arthashastra. So when he rediscovered the Arthashastra, he started translating it, and later on in 1915 he got it published. So it was the first time it was published after Acharya Chanakya wrote, it was 300 BC. The book review I'm going to share today, it is the translated version of Dr. R Shamasastry, and this is actually a huge book. both in terms of pages and the knowledge as well. This book has array of articulated thoughts and ideas and strategic details of war, governance, and international relations. It is actually a compilation of separate books, having altogether approx 150 chapters, 180 sections, and 6,000 shlokas. The book is written in the form of advisory to the kings. And in modern terms, we could say for the modern leaders. Leaders in our personal life, leaders in a corporate life, leaders in a social life. But that time it was written for the kings. This book discusses about the different rights, duties, and responsibilities of kings and their ministers. It was advised to ensure expansion of their wealth by securing their kingdom and also to acquire enemy land. The book includes recommendations on diplomacy, international relations, foreign policy, war, military tactics, assassinations, secret agents, not the James Bond, but yes, secret agents, law, prisons, taxations, irrigation, agriculture, mining, fortifications, coinage, manufacturing, trade, administrations, diplomacy, and intelligence, and a lot many fields. When I came across this book, I was like shocked. One single person having knowledge of these many fields, and that to an amazing knowledge. And while reading the book, I felt as if someone wrote detailed standard operation procedures on the topics I just shared. And this book also includes many aspects of our day-to-day life. And I guarantee you, if you follow the learnings of this book, definitely you can achieve great heights in your life. Today, we don't have the kings, but yes, we have the leaders. And for today's modern leaders, this book is going to be a repository of knowledge. This book will be a great help for you all because you all are today's modern leaders. Either it be the leaders in family, your corporate life, your social life, political life, any field, this book is going to add value to your life. But one needs a lot of patience and time because this book is huge. Again, I'll repeat, both in terms of pages and understanding the knowledge inside it. So you need patience and time to read and understand this book. This book, Arthashastra, was written by Kautilya way back in 320 or 275 BC. And you all know he was a great scholar at the ancient university of Takshashila. And later on, he became a mentor and perhaps the prime minister of Emperor Chandragupta Maurya. And he is also known as the founder of this dynasty because he was the brain behind it. And Chandragupta Maurya, you all know, the first ruler of Mauryan Empire. Also, Chanakya remained an advisor to Chandragupta's son, Bindusara, when he came to throne. And Chanakya helped Chandragupta to extend his kingdom to Indian subcontinent beyond Afghanistan as well. And the political science propagated by him was referred as Rajadharma, or the righteousness of the king. This book has got approx 15 chapters. The first chapter, it has got the disciplines regarding economic feedback, which has approx 21 chapters. The second is about the government superintendents, having 36 chapters. Third is about concerning law, which has 20 chapters. The fourth, removal of thorns. The fifth, conduct of courtiers. The sixth is source of sovereign states. Seventh, end of the sixth, end policy. And the next is concerning vices and calamities. Thereafter, work of an invader, and then relating to war, conduct of corporations, concerning a powerful enemy, strategic means to capture a fortress. The 14th is the secret means, and the last about the plan of a treatise which contains approx one chapter. So if you see all these chapters, they are not obsolete even after 2000 years. Even in the modern age, they're absolutely apt, appropriate, and you can use it even in your modern life. The first book, Kautilya, mentions how a king, whenever I say king, please, you can replace the word king by the word leaders, because even we're talking this book in modern context. So we'll be talking about the leaders, and you all are leaders in your field. So the king or the leaders should conduct the studies and learning so that they can become wise. Acharya Chanakya concludes the king who is well educated, disciplined in sciences, devoted to good governments of his subjects, and bent on doing good to all people will enjoy the earth unopposed. Don't you think that even in modern management, these same principles or knowledge is being used to gain competitive advantage? And this book was again authored 2000 years ago. Imagine. Kautilya mentions that in order to rule the world, the king, and again, we'll be talking about the modern leaders, the king and the leaders should avoid all ill virtues. He mentions about 6 of those. I request my audience, please focus on these 6 virtues. If you are aware of it, and if you could find are they in your life, then definitely you can see that you can avoid this and you can get a positive result out of it. So he mentions 6 of those. First, lust, it is the root cause of many evils. Second, anger, growth. And when we're angry, sometimes what happens, we do those things which we don't want to do, and later on in future we regret it. The third is greed. We should be greedy about knowledge, but greed, again, it will lead you to your fall. Fourth, and very important, is called vanity, which means the quality of being too proud of your appearance or your abilities, which you have done, what you believe you are. So we should not be very much proud of these things. And it might like having your past experiences as well, that I did this, I did this. The fifth is called haughtiness. Haughtiness means the appearance or the quality of being arrogantly superior and disdainful. And this one thing, virtue, we might be facing in the modern businesses, the corporates, or in our modern leadership. And the last is called overjoy. I was watching a video on YouTube that the name of the video is "Never Celebrate Too Early." So it was about some people in the athletics. So a person was about to reach the final lap. He was about to touch the winning ribbon, but he thought he has won the race, and he took a pause and he was cheering up with the audience. And suddenly, another person, he crossed the ribbon. Just few seconds, because of the overjoy, that person lost it. So even Chanakya refers to these as enemies and said that when a king would be free from all these ill virtues, he would be like a saint. I'm not saying that you become a saint, like what you have visualized till date. That is not saint. Not that picture. Saint means a person who is pure by heart. And the saintly leader will be in better position to acquire wisdom and would be able to pick right people to assist him. And this is the way he can appoint ministers, advisors, priests, spies, and envoys. And the same we can follow in our management, modern management. Kautilya clearly mentions about the required qualities the ministers, the spies, and the envoys they should have. And he also advises process of selecting these people, which in the modern era we call as the recruitment process or the interview process, where we call people and then we start the interview process. So Kautilya places the envoys above all, as they are required to acquire higher degree of excellence as human beings by the posh and sophisticated behavior. And even in modern governance, if you could see the foreign ambassadors, the invoice to the other countries, they are actually considered a bit higher because they are into international relationships. Kautilya then addresses the question of security and advocates that the personal security of the leader is very much important, followed by the security of the family, the female members, and his courtiers. So he says that the king should be safe because if the leader is down, the entire army will fall down. So this book, the first book, covers about many things about the king, how the king should be, behave, what things the king should not do. So it is the kind of advisory for the king. Now, Kautilya suggests, even you will be surprised to know that time, even Kautilya suggests the working duration for the king or the leader. And he divides the entire 24 hours of day in 4 segments. And he also describes an exhausting schedule in which the king has roughly 4.5 hours to sleep. And the rest of the time is almost entirely involved in running the kingdom. I like to quote Robin Sharma when he just came with a book called The 5 a.m. Club. So Robin Sharma once told, if you seriously don't have time, then cut your sleeping time. And 2000 years ago, Kautilya had the same thought. He wrote that the leader, they should not waste the time in sleeping, because if the leader is sleeping, the entire kingdom is at risk. So he has given many advices to the king, how to protect himself, how to protect the kingdom. Now, the second book, Kautilya advises the king on the settlement plan of villages and towns, the agricultural land, the forest, the mines, reservoir, and on the outer periphery of the kingdom. Now, if you could see, this book is usually about the architecture, how the fort should be built, how the entire kingdom should be planned. And he also covered about the agriculture part, the care of the forest, because the mines, reservoirs, they add value to the treasury. So he elaborated that that how these things should be taken care of. For example, in one line he was mentioning that what an elephant can contribute to the welfare of the kingdom. So he wrote about the duty of an elephant as well. He also wrote how a chariot can smoothly move, or how a fortress can be protected. Imagine the vision of that person. He also mentions about the soil condition, which today, our government is talking about, related to the agriculture field. They are talking about the soil testing. Chanakya wrote this in Arthashastra, and he describes the places and the soil conditions. He narrates how a treasury will be built, what should be done with the counterfeit coins 2000 years ago. Someone talking about counterfeit currencies. He also says how the grains should be grown and how they should be measured. And this is what, in modern terms, we call about the measurement, laws, or we standards of weights and measures. So he wrote about this 2000 years ago. And he also says if somebody is dealing in counterfeit coins or is tarnishing the measurement equipments, how they would be punished. And then he talks about the revenue of the government, the taxes, the tolls, and the fines, how they should be collected, what should be the amount of collection, and how much salary or wages should be received by the government employees. Each and everything has been described. I tell you, take time. It's not an easy book to understand. It will take time. It will take patience. Now comes the question of protecting the environment, which he has written prominently. Today, the entire globe is suffering from global warming. And a person 2000 years ago had that vision of environment protection. He also described about the structure of the armory, the weapons that should be kept in the armory. And he described the role of the superintendent of the armory, how they should be appointed and what are their duties. Likewise, he mentions about the superintendents of various departments like the storehouse, the weights and measures, space and time, city, tolls, weaving, agriculture, liquor. You'll be surprised to know. In this book, he also quoted about the taxes and the tolls on liquors and prostitution and many more areas, because there's one more superintendent, and that is called the Superintendent of Prostitutes. The slaughterhouse, ships, cows, houses, elephants, chariots, infantry, passports, pestilence, and the duty of the commander in chief, and also the superintendent of the revenue collectors and the spies. So every department has been defined, their roles, their duties, amount of taxes. So I was reading this book, and like I was amazed. He has described about the prostitution, how the prostitution should be taken care of. He also talks about a lady not below the age. He has described the age should be in this profession. If someone is found forcing someone into this, that person should be penalized, and that every advance from the profession should be kept by that particular person. And in modern terms, we are talking about imposing laws on these areas. And 2000 years ago, there were laws on this particular fields. The book 3, it gives an elaborate account on rules, regulations of property. Now comes the Transfer of Property Act. And also now comes the financial part. It includes, acquisition of property, inheritance, resolving property disputes. Then comes the marriage part, divorce, separation, and agreements, how to make agreements. And then it talks about the loans, the interest rates, the employment contracts, and you'll be surprised, minimum wages. That time he wrote about minimum wages. So can you imagine? Macro topics have been described in a micro way. Each and every aspect of government has been described in this book. And then he talks about punishment for robbery, then the gambling, how much gambling should be allowed, the taxation on gambling, then how if somebody is doing assault or defaming someone, then what would be the laws for assault and defamation. The book 4, it covers instructions and advice for protection of artisans and merchants, the remedies against natural calamities, what we have read in Contract Act as force majeure clause. So force majeure clause is not new for Indians. And then he talks about the protection of government properties. Today in India, not many states or the central has any law for the protection of government properties. And if there is any law, I don't know whether they are being applied properly or not. But yes, in our past we had such laws. And in addition, it mentions about the ways and the means to check dangerous crimes in the society. And he also describes about the limit of torture during the interrogations, which we know as the CRPC today, Criminal Procedure Code, the investigation process, how they should be penalized, the entire law on crime. So it has been described in book 4. The book 5 deals with the measures to suppress treason against the king and the kingdom. It also includes replenishment of treasury and subsistence of government employees. Now comes the book 6, where he describes that the king or the leader, his ministers, the country, the fort, the treasury, the army, and the friend are elements of sovereignty, which means having supreme power of authority. So this is how he has described the bifurcation of power and the delegation of power. In the next books, he gives an account of a very important policy, and that is we know as foreign policy of the kingdom. And Kautilya's philosophy for international relations is reflected in this book, which he calls as the six-fold policy. He says that peace, war, observance of neutrality, marching, alliance, making peace with one, or waging war against another. These are the six forms of state policy, and the leader should be aware, and the people having the responsibility, they should be aware of these six policies, how to use. And even in modern world, if you could see the leaders who are governing the countries, they do follow these six principles. Now, Kautilya assumed that every nation acts to maximize power and their self interest, and therefore, moral principles or obligations have little or no force in actions among nations. So beautifully, he has described the foreign policy. And even in modern era, if some leaders are using these techniques or these principles, they could get the positive result out of it. The book 8, it is it negates the contemporary ideas of the period on sovereignty and the security of the state, and also asserts that the king or the leader and the kingdom are superior to their subjects. So it might be a bit contradictory in modern terms, but yes, that time it was apt. The book 9, it says about the exact time and the tactics of invasion. One more book you can read related to this field is called The Art of War, written by Sun Tzu, who was a Chinese general. And that book has been totally focused on this particular part, that is called the timing and the tactics of invasion. And Kautilya describes that how and when a king should proceed with his ambitious plan to invade other country, and for that when to recruit the forces, and what should be the size and skills of the military. So strategically, he has written every point related to the invasion. The book 10 is entirely devoted to war. It covers different issues of war, like encampment, the march of the camp, the protection of the army in times of distress and attack, the forms of treacherous fights, the battlefields, how they should be planned, the work of infantry, cavalry, chariots, elephants, how the flanks should be made, how the front should be created. And he also describes the distinction between strong and weak troops, etc. So it is usually a strategic description of war. The book 11 is a small book that deals with issue of dissension. And then comes the 12th book, which deals with the tactics of defeating a powerful enemy. And Kautilya here mentions about some masterful strategic and military skills, like duties of a messenger, the battle of intrigue, slaying the commander-in-chief, because if the leader falls, the entire army falls. Then he talks about spies with weapons, spies with fire, spies with poison, and he talks about destruction of supply of the stores and the granaries of the enemy army. All these are eventually targeted towards a complete victory. If an army follows these tactics, there's a sure shot win for them or victory for them. The book 13, it deals about strategic means to capture a fortress. And he describes the special duties of spies during a siege, or sowing seeds of dissension, जिसको भेद के discrimination कहते हैं. And eventually he talks about the restoration of peace and stability in a conquered country. He didn't talk about looting the country. He talks about peace and stabilizing peace in the new country which the king has taken over. And this is how you can spread the empire. And you all know about Maurya Empire. They have followed the learnings of Kautilya, and that's why history is evident that they were one of the biggest dynasties of Indian history, or rather the world history. The book 14, it deals with the means to injure an enemy, and even to the extent that what kind of poison to be used, or how to poison the enemy fleet. Now, in today's term, it's we cannot use it, but yes, army or the people who have who are into the strategic duties, they plan how to attack on the enemy. So there are different ways, and in modern terms, this particular concept has changed. So we should not use it in a corporate or personal life. So this book can be avoided. And finally, the last book, that is called a bit of bibliography of the entire concepts, what Kautilya described. So if you see the Arthashastra, which is literal translation, we can say it is economics, but it is beyond economics. Arthashastra is generally, translated as the science of material gains, although science of politics and science of political economy. All these translations are totally accepted if you talk about Arthashastra. The name suggests that the book will be on economic policy, ideology, theory, or philosophy. But you'll be surprised. It brings many issues which are more than what economics is all about. Now, the question is, why the great Chanakya uses the term Arthashastra, which he explained in the last book. He says, the subsistence of mankind is termed Artha, which we call as wealth. And the earth or the planet which contains the mankind is also termed as Artha. Sometimes we call it meaning as well. And that is what wealth is all about. And Shastra, which is like we can call it the text, and that time the Shastra was considered called as text. Therefore, the science which deals with wealth is called Arthashastra. And acquiring the wealth is not only the economical part or the economy part, it has got different parameters. So he described each and every parameter. So friends, this book is a complete book that though relates every actions of an individual, group or state with the economy, but touch and deal with overall political motives, power, governance and war. So those who have interest in economy, in governance, in foreign policies, and all these different aspects which I shared with you all, do read it. This book is going to, you know, quench your thirst of knowledge of these fields. So if I conclude this book, Arthashastra, it contains a wealth of recommendations. Recommendations on a variety of situations that can be useful and practical in modern times. Implicit in it is a warning to avoid idealizations and abstractions while remaining pragmatic. But one needs to remember that the time and the context in which this book was written, it has changed. So we should change the meaning in context with the modern time. We cannot use that particular knowledge which was written 2000 years as it is. So we need to change the meaning related to the current time. And the book can be interpreted in today's context, but the dynamism of the world politics and the advancement of civilizations are such that even a masterpiece may lose its relevance if it is not interpreted appropriately. And again, credit goes to Dr. Shamasastry, who took pain, who took time to translate appropriately. The Arthashastra is indeed, a masterpiece of statecraft, diplomacy, and strategy, and is an example of non-Western literature. And who says Indian had no knowledge of these fields? Unfortunately, we were not in contact with this great scripture. But yes, in 1900 something, we found this lost art or this lost book or the lost Shastra. So the Arthashastra is a classic of diplomacy. And within this category, if you see, it is one of the most complete works of antiquity. And it is a prescriptive text that lays out rules and norms for successfully running a state, or you can say your corporates or your businesses, and conducting the international relations or the inter-department or the inter-corporate relations. The Arthashastra, it insists that diplomacy is closely associated to war, and the diplomats have clandestine roles to play. The modern civilization has brought sophistication to diplomacy. And Kautilya's perception may not be entirely appropriate now, but nonetheless, the Arthashastra is definitely a masterpiece in understanding not only the diplomacy of Kautilya, but even today's diplomacy, the international relations. And it is also a testament that the foreign relations and diplomacy are directly and indirectly akin to the economic interest of a country, or you could say a corporate, inter cultural corporates, or inter national corporates, or even intra country companies. So friends, this is what I read in this book, Arthashastra. Again, I know that when I will reread it, it will give me many more knowledge. And I could see many of my audience, they have shared their comments over here. Thank you very much for being with me in this book review. Thank you, Vishesh. Thank you, Pramod. And thank you, Indramani. Thank you, Vishesh. He says, have you read Mao Zedong book on war? Definitely, I'll take time to read this book. And then Vishesh also says, this is the premiere on live video. So this is a live video, Vishesh. It was not a premiere. And hi, Ashish. And now we have a mentor who has shared, living a life of virtues later than highlighted by Greek philosophy makes sense in today's context. Thanks, dear Govind, and sharing the thoughts of this great book. Thank you very much, sir. Now we have Shashank. Hi, Shashank. And again, Kishwani ji, he writes, great corridor of knowledge shared. Also conveys our rich, prideful heritage. Thanks. Thank you very much, sir. So, friends, take time and do read this book, because it is going to have a great impact in your life. And choose your books wisely, because books, they will chart your future. And as someone told, what you do today will decide your future. So what you read today will decide your future. We'll be coming soon with a new topic, a new book, and every week we are planning different days for different module of talks. Very soon, I'll be coming with a guest who is really crazy. The person took a risk in her life and entirely changed the profession. And today, that person is having really a successful new opportunity, a new life. Thank you, Debujit. Thank you. So, thank you very much for being with me. And I just pray that you be happy, stay safe, stay happy, stay alert, and stay knowledgeable. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sahil Jen. He writes, always a privilege listening to you. Thank you very much. See you soon. Thank you. God bless you. Waiting for the next live talk show. And thanks for being a part of our life. Leaders Avenue is really happy that our esteemed audience are our biggest support. And we request you all, please do share your views, your suggestions, or anything you want that we should include in our talk. Do share in our Gmail or email ID, which I've shared in the ticker. So take note of the email account, and we'll be waiting for your suggestions. We'll be waiting for your feedbacks, and I'm really thankful to all our audiences who have sent their feedback, their suggestions and requests in the past. So we are working on it, and we will be definitely reviewing these mails, and we'll be coming with these topics. Thank you very much.